Ben Fowlkes here for Yahoo Sports. We're joined by Dustin Poirier. He's here with us on behalf of Bud Light, but we'll get to that in a minute. Dustin, first things first, I wanted to ask how this fight came about on your end, because obviously we heard going into UFC 300, it was looking like the winner of that Armen and Charles Oliveira fight, that was going to be the next title contender. We know Armen turned it down kind of right out of the cage. What did you hear and when did you agree?
I agreed the night of UFC 300 when Armen turned it down. I got a call from the UFC. Of course, I was watching the fights, and of course, I knew that it could. I was pushing for it on my end on social media, like saying, "Let's go! I want the title," trying to get some momentum behind it. But I knew like the chance of it coming together was slim. That means Gaethje would have had to have lost. Armen or Charles would have had to, whoever won that fight was guaranteed a title shot. They would have to take too much damage or not be ready to jump back in another training camp, which I thought that they would say yes. So that's when I found out when 300, I got a call from the UFC said, "Hey, we're going to his locker room right now. As soon as he gets out the cage, we'll let you know if this thing's going to happen. You're the guy if he says no." I'm like, surprise to me, but sometimes things fall in place the way they're supposed to.
What do you think about that decision from Armen? Because I can kind of understand it. On one hand, he's already lost to Islam once. You want to make sure you're ready. You just get out of the cage. Maybe you're not sure what kind of damage you suffered yet. What do you think about his decision to not say yes right away?
I think like removing myself from his decision benefiting me on getting a title shot, looking at it away from that, I think, he's a young guy, has a long future ahead, a lot of fights left in him. And for him to jump out of an 8-week training camp, fight somebody, a tough fight, and then jump right back into training camp and have 6 weeks or whatever it would have been to get prepared. If you're guaranteed the next shot, you might want a full camp, and apparently he does. You might want to step back and say, I'm guaranteed the next shot anyway. I'll fight whoever has the belt, but I want to be 100% going in there. And I mean, that's a mature decision for a younger guy to make when he's getting offered his first UFC title shot.
Now, I talked to Islam a couple weeks ago. I asked him, how do you think this fight's going to go? And he had a pretty straightforward prediction. He said, we'll mix it up on the feet a little bit. I'll shoot for a takedown. Dustin will jump for the guillotine. I'll defend the guillotine. I'll punch him a couple times from the top, and then he'll give up his back, and I'll finish him. So I got to get your response to that prediction.
I'm going to knock him unconscious, and the ref's going to be pulling me off of him.
Now, the jump and the guillotine thing, that's kind of become a part of your lore at this
So I
point.
got so I got to do it. So I got to jump it at least once.
Well, I mean, you leaned into it a little bit. It seemed like I saw
It's
you
fun.
promoting some of the
Yeah, it's
merch.
fun. Yeah, hell yeah. Don't be silly, jump the gilly. We're selling the
Well,
shirts, man.
when I asked Islam about it, he's like, I gotta think he's getting people left and right with this in practice because he keeps going for it, even though it hasn't worked for him in a fight. And I gotta know, are you nailing it in practice?
Crushing it, dude. Yes, yes. That's why I'm so surprised and like blown away that I have 50 fights and I've never finished one with a guillotine. Crazy.
What's the conversation between you and like Mike Brown when you're going into the fight? Is he saying, please this time, don't do it?
Yeah, don't give up position. That's the record on repeat. Don't go for it, even if you think it's good tight or you have a good feel for it. Don't give up position. Well, especially with a guy like Islam. You give up position, you might be trying to get back to your feet for the rest of the round and losing a round, or putting yourself in deeper water and getting into a worse, a dangerous position. So we'll see. I just have to play it and feel how I feel in there, see how I feel in there in those positions. But I'll probably jump it.
When you look at Islam, you watch his fights, what do you think he does well?
He's a good competitor. Those guys coming out of Dagestan, that whole team, they compete hard. Um, they stick to the game plan. They're very strict on the way they move, and I don't see a whole lot of holes, honestly. If I'm sitting here watching footage with my coaches, we're watching and looking at things. He has good stand up. Obviously, his wrestling is good. Really good body locks. Not traditional wrestling. Really good body locks, sweeps, trips, things like that. Seems really strong for the weight class. Very dominant on top. Seems very heavy. It's exactly what it is. I'm fighting the #1 pound for pound guy.
Now, when you look at this matchup, you look at where you're in your career. I saw you before the last one against Benoit Saint Denis saying, I think anyone could be the last one. You hear in this one, you get a big opportunity. Does this put a little extra pressure on you to feel like this is probably it. This is probably the last shot if I can't capitalize on this one to get the undisputed UFC lightweight title.
Yeah, at the same time, I feel like I can climb my way back up the way I have over and over again. It's just, do I have it in me? Do I want to do that? I've been doing it for so many years and grinding my, tooth and nail, fighting my way up this ladder to try to be number one. And the goal is to be the undisputed world champion. That's the only thing I have left to do in this sport. I want to finish the story and be the champion forever. That's my goal.
Well, one of the things Islam pointed out was he said, "Hey, I think it's as good for me to go from potentially fighting Armen to fighting Dustin because Dustin has a lot of fans and he brings a lot more attention to a fight." And you have become such a fan favorite, and it seemed like it happened kind of later in your career. What do you make of that? Like, how do you think that happened, and why do you think it happened when it did?
I'm not really sure. Maybe, I mean, knocking out Connor was a big deal in growing my star power. But I've been putting on these type of fights my whole career in the UFC, 30 fights. It's kill or be killed every time I get on that mat. Every time I step into the octagon, I'm leaving it all out there. That's just the kind of fights that I fight. And after doing it so long in this organization and fighting on the main stage for so many times, you got consistency. You know what you're going to get. You're going to get a fight when I fight.
Now, I saw after, you beat Saint Denis and you kind of went over to Dana White right away saying, you want me fighting these young guys. And I took that to mean you saying, I know what you guys were thinking when you matched me up against this guy, that you thought I was maybe on the way down and this guy's on the way up, and you could use, my name to build a little off of his. And you've been in this sport long enough to kind of know what a matchmaker's thinking. Is that what went through your head when they first suggested this matchup where you thought, oh, that's where they think I am?
Of course, it's 100% went through my head. And I understand it's business. He has more ahead of him than he has behind him. I have more behind me than I have ahead of me. You got to keep these exciting fighters and the guys that you want to push in the forefront, so you give this guy a chance to really boost his name. Also, he's representing Paris. I look at it from the business side. He's representing a place where MMA just got legalized. It's growing like crazy out there. Their heavyweight champ is now boxing, not in the UFC anymore. And you got this guy who's a military veteran, young, finishing fights. Hey, that's the fight game. I understand.
Now, you're teaming up with Bud Light, head of UFC 302. Tell us a little about what you're doing with them.
We're doing all kind of stuff, man. We just shot a commercial, but me and the Bud Light genie are granting a wish. One lucky Bud Light UFC fan is going to get to sit front row for UFC 302 in Newark and watch these crazy scraps go down, man. It's going to be a lot of energy in the building, and I'm excited for the person to win that.